After a corner we spot one of those Bedouin tents made of goat wool, where we stop for a short break. We have a tea, while others spend some energy outdoors. The next stations have historic significance. Here we are going to see animals carved in rock from around 700 BC. Camels and hunting scenes with wild animals. The history of the Arabs may be split in two periods. The pre-Islam refers to the descendants of Abraham, who spoke and wrote in Aramaic language like the Jews. The kingdom of Moab, around 800 BC, belonged to them, and it was contemporary with the rise of David's kingdom of the Jews, and to these drawings. A famous account of the existence of these two kingdoms is the Mesha Stele, which can be seen in the Amman Museum in copies. The original is in Louvre. Later, at the threshold of BC and AD, for about 600 years, it was the Nabatean tribe who controlled most of the Middle East and the Arab Peninsula, ruling from Petra, even after the Romans already turned the Mediterranean coast into the province of Palestina. It was Nabatea that was turned by the Romans in year 106 into the province of Arabia. A short ride takes us to a place where we can see an inscription in the Aramaic language dating from the 1st century AD, contemporary to the Nabateans. Continuing our journey, we realized that the desert was very much alive. The desert has always been crossed by caravan trails. This is a caravan station. In the rock, a channel conducts the rain and dew water into a reservoir, a huge reservoir, because each camel can drink 100 liters at a time. A camel can refill its third of the body weight in 10 minutes by drinking water. It can survive up to 2 weeks without water and up to a month without food. The hump does not store water, but food. There is even a small dam to collect the February rains. These are desert plants. The fig tree, though, is not a desert plant. It sucks a lot of water. After this visit, the desert looks alive. Our guide, this gentleman, shows us insects, traces of lizard and of fox.
Oh, that's difficult. Whoa, oh, much easier.
The last stop is in an area of natural arches where Lawrence of Arabia was hiding from the Ottoman planes. And these are our final records of our desert trip. Our next destination is the former capital of the Nabateans, Petra. Petra welcomes us with bends, rocks, as well as the ruins of a crusaders' fortress here, and Byzantine ruins from the 5th century. We are heading towards the base city of the Nabateans, a people of nomads who controlled the trade across the Arabian desert contemporary to the classical Greek and Roman civilizations. The capital occupied two narrow canyons, Little Petra and Petra itself. We are in Little Petra and we discover immediately a Nabatean tomb carved in rock. In fact, Nabatean in Arabic means carver. Most of the monuments we are going to see are tombs, just like in the case of the Egyptians, because of the greater attention given to the afterlife compared to the everyday living. This is another beautiful tomb of Little Petra. An important remain are the water channels leading to large water reservoirs, necessary for the camels. We discover homes too. The shepherds were living on the raised sides, while the sheep were kept safely in the middle, thus also providing the heating of the room. A banquet hall dated the 1st century AD preserves fine paintings of leaves on its ceiling. This is what the party would see from the windows. The Little Petra ends in this natural strait. Because of the space limitations, when the city grew, it moved to the Large Petra. But we are going to visit Large Petra the following day. The next morning we dismount in Petra and we join the crowds towards the canyon, the naturally defended capital of the Nabateans. We discover the water channels right away. In fact, the Romans under Emperor Trajan in 106 AD conquered the city by discovering the main water reservoir. The canyon is a dry crack in the mountain, a natural phenomenon. The Romans paved the canyon for their chariots, and this is the original Roman pavement. This is a sculpture of a man and the feet and body of a camel in real size. But through the crack of the mountain we notice one of the most famous monuments of Petra, the so-called treasury. In fact, it's the mausoleum of one of the kings who died in year 9 AD. The central kiosk represents Isis, and on the top there is an urn with the treasure of the deceased, which is also an Egyptian influence. The style of the columns is Corinthian. It was carved starting from the top towards the bottom. And in fact, there was one more floor below, now covered with debris, and two staircases leading to the current floor. We admire the treasury from close up and from the distance. A definite masterpiece, a view to remember. We are walking through the alley of the facades, called like that because all tombs are unfinished. They are all in the Assyrian style that we know from the fact that they have the stepwise feature symbolizing the ascent towards heaven. On the left of the road we see the tombs of the rich people, and on the right the more modest ones for the poor. The geology of the walls is interesting in itself. Further down the road is a theater for 4,000 people, built by the Nabatean around year 0 and renovated by the Romans, who could convert it into a basin for water shows. This is how we have to imagine them. Right across, our attention is drawn by another important monument, partly built, partly carved. We are taking the steps towards it. The movie Indiana Jones was filmed here. And we arrive on its terrace. The building was a tomb, it served as court and as cathedral as well. The interior has a strong reverberation. And this is our group resting on its terrace. Nearby there is another construction which we have not visited. And at the distance is the Roman city. The Nymphaeum, the public fountain, leads towards the temple via a cardo, a main road. And we are in the cardo ourselves. It is midday and very hot, and there is one more monument left, the monastery, which is 600 meters higher on top of the mountain. But here comes our salvation, an owner of 2 donkeys. We mount the donkeys, and this way our climb becomes one of the highlights of the trip, one of the most pleasant experiences. was amazing how the donkey could mount the stairs. It was quite tense at going uphill, but you can imagine how tense it was coming downhill, particularly since some of the steps were rather washed out, as you can see here. Final push and we are at the top. We can see where we came from. A few steps around the corner and we discover the columns of the so-called monastery. It was built in the 2nd century AD. It was used as a meeting place for religious associations and then reused by the Byzantine Christians as monastery. The facade, brightly lit by the sunshine, was delightful. We crossed the plateau to the other side, which offers scenic, rugged views. Finally, everybody needs a short rest. Including the cat. Before we head back to the donkeys downhill. We are back to the gates, and this ends our pet run.